back religion to America, because without borders, law and order, and religion, you really don't have a country anymore.
When he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth.
That young man, I forgive him.
I have talked more about Jesus Christ in the past 2 weeks than I have my entire time.
Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to your favorite news destination. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi, and on the show tonight, the Charlie Kirk Memorial in Arizona, attended by President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and the entire MAGA faction, transformed into a full-blown revival service, an electrifying moment aiming to bring religion back to America. Because what started as a somber memorial service for conservative firebrand Charlie Kirk exploded into a full-blown revival rally, with Donald Trump and his team invoking God, Jesus Christ, and martyrdom, turning grief into gospel. Donald Trump led the charge, declaring, and I quote, that we have to bring back religion to America and that we want to bring God back into our beautiful USA. His deputy Vance claimed that I have talked more about Jesus in the past 2 weeks than my entire time in public life. Secretary of Health RFK Jr. drew parallels between Charlie and Jesus Christ, saying that Jesus died at 33 years but changed the trajectory of history. Charlie died at 31, has also changed the trajectory of history. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke of his deeper belief in creation by God and eternal life through Christ. And in a moment of raw emotion, Erica Kirk, widow of Charlie Kirk, forgave those responsible, echoing Christ. She said, "Our Savior, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would have done.
It should be no surprise that Charlie, who spent his life speaking with the critics of these traditions, ultimately became convinced that we needed not just a political realignment, but also a spiritual reawakening. We did. And we have to bring back religion to America, because without borders, law and order, and religion, you really don't have a country anymore. We want religion brought back to America. We want to bring God back into our beautiful USA like never before. We want God back.
You know, I was telling somebody backstage that I always felt a little uncomfortable talking about my faith in public, as much as I loved the Lord and as much as it was an important part of my life. I have talked more about Jesus Christ in the past 2 weeks than I have my entire time in public life.
He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return. And he will. And when he returns, because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love.
That young man. On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That young man, I forgive him.
But then 63,000 people at that stadium. This wasn't just mourning, it was mobilization. Kirk was repeatedly hailed as a martyr for American freedom, uniting the right in a wave of religious fervor. President Donald Trump announced plans to award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously, turning personal tragedy into political energy. So, Why is Trump preaching from the pulpit? Look at the numbers from the 2024 electorate. Christians made up 72% of voters, with Trump capturing 56% overall and a whopping 82% among white evangelicals. This faith pivot isn't random, it's strategic, tapping into a powerhouse and a base that's propelled MAGA to victory. And let's compare Trump's God talk to past Republican icons. Reagan averaged 2 religious terms and 1 God mention per 1,000 words in his speech. George W. Bush averaged 4 religious terms and 2 God mentions per 1,000 words. In Trump's case, you see a surge to 7.3 religious terms and 1.4 God mentions per 1,000 words in his speech. And the timing is crucial. Trump's approval ratings are in the red. Overall, positive at 39%, negative at 57%. On the economy, it's worse, 35% positive, 65% negative, and for a minus 30% rating. Is this revival rhetoric a bid to salvage sinking polls by leaning into faith? Supporters say it's authentic. Detractors call it cynical. Either way, it's reshaping America's power equation. We've got an informed panelist with us on the broadcast tonight, and the big questions that we're trying to ask: how does this blending of faith and politics reshape America's cultural and electoral landscape? Is the MAGA coalition's religious resurgence sustainable or a momentary flashpoint? Well, with me on the broadcast is Shelby Williams, Republican political strategist, joining us live from Texas, and also with us Nirmal Abraham, political analyst and an expert on U.S. On the broadcast with us. Mr. Williams, let me begin with you. Critics say Charlie Kirk's memorial was part eulogy, part complete political campaign rally. Was this an organic outpouring, the people that you see, the visuals that we've been consuming for the last 24 hours, or a deliberate strategy to fuse MAGA with the Christian revival? We've seen Trump openly call for bringing God back to America. Borders, laws, and God is what is going to make America great again. Help the viewers back at home here in India understand, is this a new chapter of Republican politics, or simply Reagan and Bush's religious playbook now supercharged for the MAGA base?
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be back with you again. Based on the memorial last night, that was a very large representation of memorials that we've seen locally ever since Charlie was assassinated. So I do think it was organic. And I think the fusion of the religious tone of the memorial was a natural byproduct of Charlie. Charlie was a person of deep faith in Jesus Christ, as am I, and he was not afraid to share that. He didn't make that the central point of everything he said, but he didn't hide it. And so it was an inseparable part of who he was. Likewise, he went to college campuses everywhere and spoke about political matters. And so the fusion of those two things, religion and politics, I think was unavoidable when it comes to a memorial for Charlie Kirk, because he embodied those two things and he shared them with everyone. He shared them respectfully. He engaged with people in, I think, the ultimate exercise of freedom of speech in America.
All right, man, thanks for your opening comments. Nirmal, where do you stand on this particular topic? What do you make of it? Because people have been asking me since the morning, why should Indians care about what happened at Charlie Kirk's memorial? But it's something, not always should debate shows leave you with answers. Sometimes they can also leave you with questions. So over to you, your opening comment.
Well, if you ask me look, I don't think it's because of Trump's speech or Vance's speech that people are moved. I think people are moved, especially moderates, are moved by the actions of the people on the right, largely, and the response that they had to the death of Charlie Kirk. That's what may have moved people, beyond the speeches that were made or the mentions of Jesus and Bible that were made. I think it was the response, because if you compare the response to some of the political assassinations on the left, especially, for example, George Floyd, it was followed by a number of riots on the street, burning of flags and cars and looting and shooting and all of that. But when you saw what happened in the last 10 days or 2 weeks, you could see the sense of calmness, the lack of violence, which was noted by a lot of moderates. And I know a lot of friends in the US who are liberals as well as moderates, who mentioned the same thing. I know a radio host in the US who has voted Republican but identifies herself as a moderate. She called me and said, look, I'm not moved by the speeches of Trump. I'm actually moved by how the right wing, the people of the right, have responded to the death of Charlie Kirk, and also the fact that if you, I don't know if you noticed, there was not a single representative from the Democratic Party in the arena, which was very unfortunate, because if you're a person who does not believe in political violence, if you're a person who believes in tolerance, you should have been there. So the lack of a Democratic representative or a political commentator have also raised eyebrows. So I don't think it's the speech of Donald Trump or J.D. Vance that may have moved people. But if you ask me, I wouldn't use the term Trump capitalize. I don't think Trump is trying to capitalize. But will it benefit Trump and the Republican Party? Yes, I do think it will benefit the Trump and the Republican Party, because, as you said, Christian conservatives are a large vote bank for the Republican Party, and the more that it consolidates, the more it benefits Trump. But it's again too early to say, because the next midterms is in the 3rd of November 2026. It's still 13 months away. We saw what happened in the last 13 days. We had so many events in the last 13 days. Israel reaching territory in Qatar. We saw Trump and Elon Musk shake hands again yesterday.
For the first time, at least in public, for the first time that happened.
Yes,
we don't know whether they were shaking hands behind doors, but for the first time that happened. But I mean, look at these optics as well, Nirmal. What do you make of it? Donald Trump, a thrice married New Yorker with, I wouldn't stick my neck out to say he's got massive knowledge of the scripture. He's won evangelical loyalty. What does this tell us about the instrumental use of religion in politics, in American politics? Is this a shifting paradigm in American democracy, or are we reading too much into it?
Well, if you ask me, constitutionally, America may not be a Christian nation, but culturally and historically, the US is a religious nation or a Christian nation, because if you look at the law, the norms, the rules, the regulations, the guidelines, the moral values that they follow, it's largely based on Christian values and principles. So I don't think it's wrong to mention Jesus or the Bible or the church in a speech. It's perfectly okay. But if you ask me whether the inclusion or exclusion of a religious ideology is right, I would say you have to be fair, because if you're willing to exclude religious ideology in your speech, then you should be able to include it as well. I'll give you one example. The DNC, 2020 DNC, there were certain factions of the Democratic Party that excluded the phrase under God. There's the phrase one nation under God in the Pledge of Allegiance, and some factions of the Democratic Party actually excluded that. A lot of Christians felt disenfranchised. There were schools, public schools in Democrat states, that did not allow you to pray in private. So if I wanted to have lunch and I wanted to give a prayer, I wasn't allowed to do that in certain Democratic states. So Trump was the one who actually acted as a voice for these people. So they are willing to vote for him. I wouldn't blame that, because it's a natural consequence. When a certain political party decides to exclude religion from their scheme of things, the other party will capitalize. That's just natural.
All right. Dr. Ramlindu Misra, Professor of International Politics, Lancaster University, joining us live from Lancaster. Many thanks for taking out the time, Professor. We've already, gone around the table once, but since you've just joined us, help us understand, how do you read the optics of Charlie Kirk's memorial? A stadium of 63,000. There was federal security, speeches, of course, laced with scripture. Does this, according to you, mark a deeper shift in American democracy?
Well, the killing of Mr. Charlie Kirk was definitely a turning point. It was a watershed moment in recent American history, if I could put it that way. But what is more important that we see here is the transformation of that particular nationwide grief into a political spectacle. Let me sort of go back to what Mr. Trump was saying. He's talking about bringing back religion to America. Religion was always a foundational principle in the American Constitution. If you pick up a dollar bill, it says, "In God we trust." So the question, therefore, is what sort of religion that Mr. Trump is talking about to bring back to the United States. So that is where I think the battle line that he's drawing is between the secularists and the religionists, or the secularists who would like to see that the fundamentalist Christianity that has been a powerhouse in the American political process should be given the forefront. It should be brought to the fore. And let's not forget that the left has always been talking about sort of right to your body, abortion basically, women's rights, and we talk also about the cultural paradigm shifts in terms of the woke culture and so on and so forth. So the attempt here would be to sort of bring back a kind of muscular variety of fundamentalist Christianity that is pro-life, that sort of infuses the sense of belonging, Christian religious belonging in the political process. And the long-term aim is to infuse that and create a solid political power base in terms of electorates. And given the fact that Mr. Kirk, who is no longer with us, was always talking about scriptures, I was just quoting liberally from both the Old Testament and the New Testament, and trying to make a political point by using those texts. It's sort of no surprise that all the luminaries were assembled in the service, remembrance service today, were sort of going down that particular path.
Right.
So perhaps in death, Mr. Kirk.
Well, a little bit of technical difficulty. We're going to quickly patch that back. But what Professor here is talking about, he's saying that this actually was a turning point and a watershed moment for, American politics. Coming back to you, Mr. Williams, going again back to Donald Trump's speech, Erica Kirk, she said that she forgives the people who were behind the assassination. And she also goes on to say that the gospel is built on the foundation of love, love, love. But that's something that Donald Trump contradicts in his own speech. He later on goes on to say that I hate the enemies of Charlie Kirk. I hate them. That's one thing that I disagreed, with Charlie Kirk on. How does that comment, how is that perceived or consumed by the MAGA base and the common American out there?
Well, you're touching on the fundamental paradox of Christianity, because we are all human. And it is very hard to love. And what Erica Kirk did, forgiving Charlie's assassin, is a very difficult thing for humans to do. We internalize negative emotions. But,
and she has the entire stadium with her. When she's talking, everybody is waiting with bated breath as to what she's going to say.
Yes.
And then she goes on to say that I forgive him. And it is a difficult moment for her. We can all clearly see that. And there's a rapturous applause as well that comes from the stadium. But then Donald Trump says the other thing.
Yes, and that's what numerous humans do. I've seen the chatter, I've seen the talk since Charlie's assassination with people who were bent on revenge, as well as people who are bent on forgiveness. It's a very difficult, dichotomy in the human spirit to try to forgive something when you've been wounded so deeply. But that's a core tenet of Christianity, is that Christ forgave us. And it's very difficult to do. It's easy to talk about Christ. It's very difficult to follow his example.
Nirmal, the world is certainly watching, and especially for allies like India in these terrifying times, does this stronger religious underpinning of Republican politics, affect how Americans will now portray themselves abroad in terms of their foreign policy as well? I'm just trying to create a link to understand, because us at home as Indians, as aware people today in 2025, need to understand the political climate in America. So since the world is watching and India is an ally, does this affect now how America projects itself abroad?
I don't think so, because Trump has always been America first, not necessarily Christianity first. It's just part of it, I would say. So all the policies that is making or focusing on, so for example, the tariffs or the H-1B visas or immigration will remain the same. I don't think this will make a difference. I think the difference that it will make is within the United States to a lot of people, especially moderates who usually vote both ways depending on candidates, and also the midterm elections. These are two areas that I'm focused on at the moment based on what he said. But as I said again, 13 months left for the midterm elections, still too early to predict. Trump, as you know, very dynamic, very unpredictable. So you never know what happens tomorrow. So at the moment, though, unfortunately for Trump, his approval ratings are lower compared to what it was in Jan of 2025, which is a bad sign. So in that sense, if you talk about it, I would say, yes, this service may have lifted the spirits of some people, may have tilted some people on the center slightly towards the right. But will it translate to votes is a question that we'll have to wait for at least the next 12, 13 months, at least the midterm elections.
Well, absolutely. It is going to be a long waiting game, but everybody is going to be asking those questions, from the shoulder of, the aspect and the POV of the midterms that are going to be right around the corner. Mr. Williams, you wanted to come in, and then I'll go to Professor.
Yes, I apologize. I just want to say that I hope it does change how America interrelates with the rest of the world, from the standpoint that Charlie stood for free speech. He walked into some very hostile enclaves, and he shared his beliefs respectfully, cordially, openly, and we should all do that. The very first clause of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof." And with all of us being able to share both religious and political thought with one another respectfully, peacefully, that's part of the Judeo-Christian tenet that America was built on. We have always been a religious country, to Mr. Abraham's and Dr. Misra's point. This, I think, is a revival in a sense, but I hope that it spreads as a positive revival to engage in civil discourse. I've always said that America's first promise was the freedom to worship according to your own tenets, before there was an America. And we have, for instance, a very thriving Indian Hindu community here where I live, and we embrace one another. And we are able to engage in friendship, respectful discourse, which is the way it should be across the world.
All right. Professor, let me come back to you. This is a question we do need to ask. Is there a risk that by declaring Charlie Kirk a martyr for the Christian faith, Republicans are normalizing the politicization of death? And this is probably happening in ways that we have seen, if not in recent past, in our history. What's your viewpoint on that? Professor?
Well, I mean, if you realize what is happening here. Yeah, I'm speaking.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
So there is a very clear attempt to sort of equate the sacrifices made by Jesus of Nazareth with the sacrifice made by Mr. Charlie Kirk here. So when you talk about martyrdom, you're talking about someone who dies for his faith, for his belief. So it's a kind of modern day crucifixion, if I could put it that way, or putting someone on the stake for his beliefs, because his point was he's not going to give up what he believed in. And he sort of, in all his meetings in the university campuses, on the public broadcast, he talked about the faith in no uncertain terms. So I think they have made very clear, all the people, including Charlie Kirk's wife, to make sure that that particular message is hammered home. And when he talked about Mr. Kirk's wife forgiving the killer, talking about love, that is also compared to what Jesus of Nazareth stood for, in terms of forgive your enemies, forgive those who have done wrong to you, love thy enemy, and all those things. So the scriptural interpretations are very much present here in the kind of homily that has been sort of broadcast to the entire world here. So yes, I mean, I won't be surprised if there was a kind of Catholic church. I'm not entirely sure whether he was a Catholic or a Protestant. I imagine he was a Protestant. So there have been attempts to make him a sort of saint in the years to come, perhaps.
Interesting points, Professor. Mr. Abraham, let me come back to you. Let's also talk about J.D. Vance and 2028 being on the horizon as well. How much of it was political canvassing ahead of 2028? Because I've been trying to link India and the United States on this particular peg and story. Trump is already known in India. J.D. Vance is emerging as the next big Republican face as well. And if Vance can secure that evangelical base, he could be the next US president. I mean, it's all speculative right now, but India's foreign policy, the trade and the diaspora interests, they're always directly related to who's leading the United States. And J.D. Vance, he earlier was in India, much fanfare from Jaipur to Agra, the Golden Triangle and it all. He seemed to be enjoying it, and he, he's a man of faith, seems to be very welcoming in India as well. So how much of this is about 2028? Or again, are we reading too much into this? Nirmal?
I wouldn't say we are reading too much into it. I would say it's too early to predict, too early to speak about it, because Trump was asked the same question, will it be J.D. Vance running in 2028? And he did not give us an appropriate answer or a clear answer for that matter. So I think it's too early again. But if it is J.D. Vance,
I'm only saying so, Nirmal, because I mean you've got Ron DeSantis, whose ratings are lower than J.D. Vance right now, and not many names. Yeah.
Correct. So yeah, I mean in that regard, given the experience that he will have in the next 3.5 years, he will be a candidate for sure. So the capitalization of Christian votes, the revival of Christianity in the United States will definitely help J.D. Vance and the Republican Party, even in the midterms, because in the midterms, as you know, when they vote on Congress and Senate, again, it depends on the candidate and how they are, not necessarily just on the presidential material. J.D. Vance, however, did not sound ingenuine to me, because he was always outspoken about his faith, and he was also connected with Charlie. So none of it sounded non-authentic to me. I thought it was authentic. Whether it helps him or not, again, is a question that we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Mr. Williams, finally coming back to you, and I think we can leave the show on this particular question. Should India worry at all? Should India worry that US foreign policy may one day reflect more of these faith-driven impulses? Because we saw the 63,000 large crowd yesterday, especially under leaders like J.D. Vance. And now that we're talking about 2028, your opinion on that as well?
No, I don't think that India has anything to fear. If anything, I think India-US relations will improve because of this. This has galvanized people across America to want to share in the way that Charlie shared, want to engage peacefully, and that can only be positive in the future of India-US relationships.
All right. I think we leave it there. Shelby Williams, political strategist for the Republican Party. Many thanks for taking out the time. Nirmal, always a pleasure to have you with us here on News9. Dr. Misra, it seems like he was traveling. He's cut his connection, but many thanks to him for joining us on the broadcast as well. That's the situation at hand, because whilst we're talking about this, strong views on whether this is faith guiding politics or politics co-opting faith. For India, it's a reminder that what plays out in America, pews and politics often echoes in our own debates here back at home. Sometimes, like I mentioned right at the beginning of the show, we don't necessarily want to leave our viewers with answers all the time. Sometimes you can take back some questions as well. Many thanks for watching. In your interest, top developments right on the other side. Keep it to News9.
पापा इससे पहले जो चलाई थी वही ले ले।
चलती बढ़िया है। कुछ कह रहे थे?
नहीं, इनकी सर्विस में डाउट था ना।
सर, ओवर 300 टच पॉइंट्स, 170 सेंसिटीज।
पर इन्हें सिर्फ 25 ही साल हुए हैं।
तुमसे तो ज्यादा ही है।
Skoda Fan Fest is live. Walk in today for a test drive and avail exciting benefits.
Skoda. Alakazam face disappears. Moonlight.
Smooth, silent, seamless. Sliding systems from headache.
You can take a left, you can take a right. Add a salsa or a little jive. If you really feel it, say it on price. It's the vibe, it's the vibe, it's the vibe.
Elegant styling meets adrenaline pumping performance. Drive a world of sporty sophistication with the all-electric VF7 from VinFast. India price starting at rupees 20.89 lakhs.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9, English news as it should be.
And we begin with a big News 9 exclusive. India's next frontier, the space, is set to go one level up further. India is developing a plan now to improve its ability to protect satellites from attacks. People familiar with the matter have said that after a near miss in orbit highlighted risks to national security posed by other spacecraft, India is now developing bodyguard satellites. Prime Minister Modi-led government wants to develop so-called bodyguard satellites to identify and counter threats to orbiting spacecraft. And bear in mind, satellites also played a significant role during the India conflict with rival Pakistan this year, which put both the countries on the brink of an all-out war. A previously unreported incident highlighted the need for action when a satellite from a neighboring country came dangerously close to one of India's. That spacecraft from a neighboring country, which people familiar with the matter will not name, came within 1 kilometer of an ISRO satellite, performing tasks that could have military applications such as mapping and monitoring of objects on the ground. Although the two satellites did not collide, such an unusually close approach was possibly a show of strength that could have been a test to demonstrate the other country's capabilities. We have my colleague Kabir Naqvi now joining us live from the newsroom for more on that News 9 exclusive. Kabir, when it comes to national security, space is the next frontier, and these bodyguard satellites are essentially a major step up. We're looking at the future of how national security is going to play out in space.
Absolutely right. I mean, about 200 years back, Krishna, astronomers would look up in the sky, think to themselves, why is this star changing its position? Cut to how we've developed a time system for ourselves, the longitudes, the latitudes, astronomy, and now in 2025 we're finally talking about space warfare as well. Take a look at this Nisar satellite that India, ISRO, and NASA in that massive collaboration put up there. So much of money is already there, and given a chance that some other satellite comes and bangs into it, is going to be a major loss of money. And that's exactly what was about to happen in 2024. One of our neighboring countries, their satellite came within 1 kilometer of our own satellite. And when we're talking about our satellite, they're again important for reconnaissance, they're important for national sovereignty and security. You rightly pointed out, during Operation Sindoor, our satellite played such a great and huge role. Across the world, satellites are now, picking up the job of reconnaissance in space and in outer orbit, and that's where space warfare comes, into the domain. So India is now mulling to send these bodyguard satellites up there. What they're essentially going to do is they're going to be escorting our main satellites. They're going to be protecting our main satellites. There's going to be early threat determination. There's going to be early, warning systems that is going to be in play, because mind you, this is going to be AI driven. This is going to be artificial intelligence driven. And when we're talking about the space taxis, nobody does it better than India. Our GSLV, our PSLV, it's us who put the satellites up there. Now, just to race past a couple of points as to why this essentially matters right now, is because when we're talking about reconnaissance, communication, navigation, missile defense, they all happen under our satellite link and the entire grid that we've sort of set up in the air. And India is playing a crucial role on the global stage. Militarization of space, especially by our own adversaries. Take a look at some what other countries are doing. The United States with NASA. Take a look at what China has been doing. Even ESA, the European Space Association, is now mulling to set up tent on the moon. So with all of this happening and at fast pace, it's important that we also protect and defend our space assets up up there. There is cutting-edge features, like I pointed out. There's AI-driven threat detection and automated response systems that are going to be integrated. We're also mulling inter-satellite communication for real-time coordination. So if you've got two bodyguard satellites in this part of the orbit, in the exact opposite one, you can have your other set of bodyguard satellites that are going to be connected and can help each other with real-time coverage. And analysts believe that the 2024 incident, that near miss that happened between the two satellites, is the reason why we're now talking about this. And it's time, because the bigger picture essentially is that India's aspirations for space, self-reliance and security is already out there. Take a look at what we did with Chandrayaan 3, with the Aditya L1, and very recently the NISAR collaboration. It was put on the PSLV and the GSLV back. We took it up there. So our space ambitions and aspirations is in front of everybody else across the world. We do it better and we do it cheaper. It also again reinforces the fact that space is now contested. It is militarized and is now a domain that we now need to add to our national sovereignty and security questions and discussions. So what has happened right now